Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sridhar Iyer. Today is Monday, that's Monday nights. But before we welcome our guest, please like this video and don't ask your personal career questions because we have answered them many times. So please don't waste your money asking what career should I pursue. Thank you very much for your cooperation. And let's now welcome the guest of the evening, Abhijit Iyer-Mitra.
Veil, veil,
Oh,
victory, veil.
Vetrivel Veeravel, who's this guy? Mogambo ka baap khush hua.
That's me.
So, so we know that Mogambo does get khush hua. What happened to Mogambo ka baap?
वो भी खुश हुआ जब बेटा खुश होता है तब बाप भी खुश होता है ना.
All right, Abhijit. So let us jump into question and answers. We have a lot of questions for you today. Let's go with the first question, please. Karan wants to know how was Indian indenture coolie system different from slavery, and many Britishers claim that Britain was first to abolish slavery. Is this true?
Yes and no. Yes, because it wasn't terribly different. See, it was essentially serfdom by another name, where you are in bonded labor for debts, which is just like slavery. In slavery, of course, the only difference between indentured labor and slavery was that in slavery there was no commitment on part of the owner to release you. But in the indenture system, if assuming your debts were paid off, you had to be released. So other than that, there was absolutely nothing that was different. And in fact, the indentured labor system was brought about precisely because Britain abolished slavery and they needed workers in places like Suriname and Fiji and Sri Lanka and places like that. The locals either went the numbers went high enough or they went working, and so they had to take Indians. And this was just slavery by another name and another means. It was that simple, and it was ultimately, I think, abolished in 1920 or something like that.
Next question, please. Abhishek wants to know when we are taught our history of slavery, why are we only taught about history of Western slavery and not about slavery in Arab Muslim countries and Ottoman Empire? Why have they no black population now?
Well, they do actually have black populations. The thing is, in a lot of the Arab countries, see, you need slavery when you have a low population and you have a lot of need for one second. Quiet. And you have a lot of need for agricultural labor or rock mining, etc., etc., etc. So slavery in the Muslim context was completely different. Remember, you had slave sultans, Mamluks, both in Egypt and in India, were slave sultans. Things like near the levels of slavery that you experienced in the Americas. Remember, slavery was a real problem in the Americas because it was agricultural slavery. Whereas in most other countries where you had slavery, it was a completely different kind of slavery. It was house slavery or it was galley slavery. The Romans used to use galley slaves. Once you moved from galleys to wind to sail ships where oars aren't required, you didn't require galley slaves. Then you required slaves for mines because mines were high risk areas. Now, the problem is when you have fertile agricultural land, you have a huge population, uh, not enough jobs. And so, the price of labor is so cheap. There's a reason that the pyramids and things, not one single slave was employed to build the pyramids. Why? Because there was too much population. There was the fear of popular uprising, which is why they had to have these gigantic projects so that you would not become slaves. Turkic slavery was a completely different thing, right? So it was completely different, and it never reached the kind of industrial proportions that the transatlantic slave trade did. However, it is very important when we talk about Western slavery to remember that the Western slavers were only the penultimate link in the chain. All the capturing and the breeding and everything of slaves was done by black people themselves. They were doing it to their own populations.
Um, Debanjan Banerjee wants to know, do you believe that political instability in Pakistan is primarily responsible for current problems in Punjab and it is futile to blame the AAP for this?
In Indian Punjab? Yes, I don't see
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't see that what the connection is. See, the use of Khalistanis has been a very well calibrated strategy for 30, 40 years. Okay, and it's a very stable policy. It's a multi generational, multi year, multi decade policy which has been at the core since the 1990s. You know, when the Pakistanis decided that they wanted to keep both the Punjab insurgency and the Kashmir insurgency running, so they will not kill Sikhs in Kashmir. Uh, uh, they had a very clear policy on that. And in those days, it was Pakistanis paying money to Khalistanis to go blow themselves up. These days, it's Khalistanis sitting in Canada and the UK paying money, less UK, mostly Canada, paying money to Pakistanis to go blow themselves up. AAP is just profiting off it, like AAP does, like they're opportunists.
Next question again from Abhishek. Do you see Christians in Kerala voting for BJP in the near future as they are really afraid of rising radical elements among Muslims? And why Goa BJP too has many Christian Catholic leaders?
Yes, I do. In fact, what apparently is happening is a lot of Congress people are telling me this, that they depended on the Congress to the CPIM used to look after the Muslim vote, the Congress used to look after the Christian vote, but now it turns out that the Congress is taking a line that is basically second fiddle to the CPIM. So what they're seeing is that a lot of Christians apparently are just planning on sitting it out. They're not planning on voting for the BJP, but they're not planning on voting at all, which then can yield results for the BJP if there is Hindu consolidation. The problem is we're not even seeing proper Hindu consolidation out there, in spite of it having the biggest RSS shaka anywhere in India. Okay. And why the Goa BJP has so many Christian Catholic leaders? Well, they're broad basing, boss. They're a broad based party. So if there's lots of Christians in Goa, you're going to have lots of Goa BJP Catholic Christian leaders.
Next question from Krishna. Can healthcare be left to free market economy?
Yes, it absolutely can. It absolutely can. Why not? See, the problem, okay, let me give you two examples, Australia and Canada. Okay. Canada may, the problem, and America. Let's take three examples. Canada, because health costs are completely socialized, which is to say it's completely on the state. What happens is the state could not afford vaccine hesitancy. The costs of vaccine hesitancy were too great for the state, which is why they had to go in for penal measures for people who would not get vaccinated. In America, you could not crack down on vaccine hesitancy because healthcare is almost completely private. You do have Obamacare and things like that, but that is again a mix. Australia was different. It was in spite of a free market, more or less, in the healthcare sector, they still went in for harsh vaccine mandates for political reasons and ideological reasons, which technically Australia has the best sort of balance between these healthcare systems, right? Which is you pay if you get your healthcare before you've got your basic healthcare card, right? And the government says we're a wholesaler. So we will provide you with patients and you will provide us with massive discounts, which then comes out of the tax money. So usually when I used to go to the doctor in Australia, not usually, or every time except for one optional dental cavity filling, uh, I never had to pay a doctor, right? And if you take private medical insurance, and so remember, there is the socialization of costs, kind of. If you take private medical insurance, which is much better because it gives you a wider range, what ends up happening is you pay 50%, the government pays 50% if you take it before you're 30 years of age. Right after that, your share increases if you haven't maintained it and things like that. So I started taking this pretty high-end one, which was $90 a month. And it was smooth. It included all dental, everything elective, most elective, not all elective. I mean, if you go in for plastic surgery option, obviously not. But basic dental maintenance like cavity filling and things were included in there. So these are three different models. Now, essentially, a developed country, don't confuse free market with developed country. Developed country, you demand certain social services. Will have a socialization of health costs. There's nothing you can do about it because it's like the socialization of education costs, which is why American education is shit at the school level mostly, unless you're in a good school district. So you can actually leave it to the free market. Yes, regulate. Remember, all free market depends on regulation. Otherwise, it devolves into monopolies.
Chaitanya wants to know, what do you think? Why do you think India can't become a $5 trillion economy? Our GDP is 3.5 now. With 4% annual GDP growth, we can become a 5 trillion economy in 10 years. Please explain your rationale.
So I will answer this with a question. Shri, could you please tell me how many semiconductor, microchip, and all those factories we have in India?
Zero.
Zero. Thank you. Do you know what the FDI figures for last year were?
It's completely, yeah, now it's seeable. Total kya hai? Just read us the total.
Singapore, no, look at where it's coming from. That is more
Oh,
important.
yeah. Singapore, United States, Mauritius,
59
yeah.
billion Indian rupees. What do you think is coming in from Singapore? Mauritius,
Oh,
yes, huge industrial center.
P notes.
Huge industrial center. You are getting massive, because Mauritius manufactures, Mauritius is the next Germany. UAE में होता है. Cayman Islands में क्या production होता है भाई? And look at the two big industrial powerhouses, Japan and Germany. They're right at the bottom. Cyprus is in our top 10 FDI. Your FDI is entirely bloody money laundering. 99% of it is money laundering from one source or another. कैसे बनोगे? It is money that's being laundered over and over again. Where is your manufacturing? What is the last big manufacturing plant you saw? Apple is producing iPhone 14 at the Foxconn plant. Where is the new plant? To this day, I work with several companies trying to source stuff for them, basically to gauge risk. I don't source the stuff. There is nothing. Even made in India products, you will be amazed. I was doing something for a kitchenware line. There was not one piece that we could find up to quality, that kind of anodized quality that we wanted in India. It was all coming from China, and we had got whatever we wanted in China about 5-6 times cheaper than it would have cost to set up a manufacturing plant in India. भाई money launder करके तुम 5 trillion नहीं बन सकते हो. There has to be value addition, there has to be value creation. क्या value add कर रहे हो? At least set up new toothbrush or chaddi factories. Cotton chaddi, bamboo chaddi, crotchless chaddi, whatever chaddi. वो भी तुम नया नहीं कर रहे हो. Bangladesh is overtaking you in textiles. You all keep laughing, how are they comparing Bangladesh to India? But they're going ahead of you. You are not becoming a 5 trillion economy. Going on, देखो, when you do black money transactions, क्या होता है? You pay somebody 5 lakhs. He gives it to you as cash. Okay? Then you pay someone and he gives it to you as white, and then you pay back the other guy. No new money has been created in this. For that 109 billion rupees coming in from 109 million rupees coming in from America, you tell me what new plants have been set up. Do you know of any plants, Sri?
Unfortunately, no. India is only doing service industry. They're getting hospitals. They're doing some ancillary stuff like that. But other than pharma, where they seem to have a way of reverse engineering an established product in US. They bring it here, they reverse engineer it, they manufacture it at a fraction of a price, and then they go back and sell it as a generic product. Sometimes to the manufacturer himself, the manufacturer will have two brands, generic and name brand, and some will buy the name brand and some will buy the generic because of the pricing.
Yeah, and then you're not
Other
having the R&D required.
Yeah, the Covaxin is a genuine product now. Covaxin is a genuine product because India has used more traditional methods of developing a vaccine to create this vaccine. For instance, tomorrow, if China starts behaving and there's a new leadership, and the new leadership says, we were bad, we are sorry, we apologize, we'd like to buy vaccines from you, India should take advantage of that and see how best they can get some of its industrial infrastructure back. What
And
Abhijit is saying is
problem,
absolutely right.
remember, the problem with Bharat Biotech was they came up with a fantastic new vaccine with government invested funds. Totally fine. I completely support that model. They never had the wisdom to invest in the fabricators and things like that, so they could not gobble up the lion's share of the market, which still went to Poonawalla. Okay, so fantastic product, not enough fabrication by the time, and there was no fabrication available in an emergency like that in 4 or 5 months. Industrial this thing required, which shows you that India couldn't even fabricate what was required to mix those medicines and things like that.
Next question, please. Sachin wants to know, hello Abhijit and Sri, although it may be a rumor now, what do you think will be Xi's fate in the future?
Kuch nahi, nothing has happened to Xi. I knew this day before yesterday itself. I had called up all my fellows in Beijing and found out. They all said nothing is happening. See, coups have certain markers. Okay, communications are cut off, certain things are cut off, etc., etc. There was this photo of one plane flying over Beijing. Well, the thing about Beijing is, every time I've been to Beijing, I've spent over a year in China now. In Beijing airspace is closed. If you live in Beijing, you won't see planes fly over you. They all come from outside Beijing and land at that airport there. So you will almost never see planes over Beijing. Okay, so forget about this. Nothing has happened to him. He has castrated the army so completely, they are not in a position, and all the commanders keep getting changed every 6 months to 12 months. There's no time for them to even plan a coup. And when you get shifted, you don't even know who to trust. You might be betrayed by your own, and then it's the death sentence for you.
All right, let's see what happens. Let's go to the next question. Why is UK's economy falling? Why are people naming it as a developing country now? Sachin.
Who told you it's falling, boss? कैसे fall हो रहा है? And who called it a developing country? They don't focus on manufacturing. No? They focus on profits, and they're very good at it. Unlike France,
What is their main industry, according to you, Abhijit?
It's very high-end machine parts.
What about Germany?
Also, but Britain has very good high-end manufacturing parts. Rolls-Royce, for example, not the cars. That's German.
The aircraft engines.
Owned by BMW, but Rolls-Royce aircraft engines.
But how many aircraft engines are you going to make in a year? 1,000?
A lot. The economic footprint of it is massive because it's a huge high-end. See, they focus on profits. They're not focused on state manufacturing capacity like the French. There's that fundamental philosophical difference between the British approach and the French approach. The French want to control all the industries they have. The British do not. Right? It keeps costs low. And they have an extremely well-trained workforce, very disciplined, extremely highly trained workforce. So they focus on things like that.
Next question, please. Mandar Kanik wants to know an analysis of Ukrainian counteroffensive operations and their impact, according to you.
Well, they've definitely got Putin's pants down, that's for sure. But what we saw, I think we've talked about this, no, Shri, last time? But what he's saying
No.
is
Well,
the
we've been talking about HIMARS, the effect of MiGs being used by Ukrainians to shoot down S-400, things like
So
that.
basically, what's been happening is that the Russians have withdrawn. Only one salient has Ukraine succeeded in the north near Kharkiv. And there, what you've seen is that the Russians have withdrawn in some places 40 kilometers, in some places up to 70 kilometers. And that's a huge loss because they would have fought at least 4 or 5 weeks to gain that amount of land, and they've lost it rapidly in the space of a few days. But here's the thing, the Ukrainians did not push them back. That's the surprising thing. Because the destroyed armor and things like that, you're seeing in a very small sliver, about 5 kilometers deep. The remaining 35 to 65 kilometers, what we're seeing is the Russians have abandoned stuff and moved back. And it seems to be a logistics problem. Clearly, it's one of those HIMARs that caught some key point in the logistics chain that we don't know about. Because remember, the logistics in the east and the south are holding just fine.
Next question, Chaitanya ji wants to know, does India have HIMARS-like systems? Can such systems replace jets to target stationary targets like ammunition factories, command posts, etc.? Most Pakistan is within 500-kilometer distance from our border. I think less than that.
So basically, what happens is we have the Smersh, which is the Russian version of the HIMARS, much heavier, much bigger, but fantastic. I don't know if it has the kind of terminal accuracy that HIMARS does. I doubt. As you're seeing with a lot of Russian equipment, it's not very accurate. You have the BM-21 Grad, the old ones, also Russian. And you have the Pinaka. I don't know at what stage the Pinaka is. I haven't heard about it in a very long time, but we have the Pinaka, which is a domestic one. Hopefully, it's better than the other ones. But yes, we do have them. Their terminal accuracy is yet to be seen.
Someone just posted a comment.
And just remember, the Smersh goes up to about between 90 to 120 kilometers. It actually goes further than the HIMARS.
Somebody posted a comment, Abhijit, that the Rolls-Royce is losing money and that the government is bailing them out constantly.
Rolls-Royce aircraft engines.
Engines, yeah.
Let's see. Easily checked.
A request to all of you to like this video so that it can reach its maximum potential. And at the end of the program, again, like, share, and subscribe to our channel and click on the bell button for notifications. Abhijit is looking up on Factoid.
See, worst is behind us. Why? Because of COVID, boss. COVID में कोई sales नहीं हुए थे planes के. They're not going on pumping money in there. And remember,
Yeah,
Rolls-Royce.
COVID completely, turned the thing upside down. Never mind. Let's move on. I completely agree. I mean, COVID, you can't use that to judge somebody's profitability. Maliban Bhattacharya wants to know, why didn't Mexico take advantage during this American Civil War by backing the Confederates?
Because nobody liked the Mexicans at that point. The Confederates also did not like the Mexicans. And Mexico had its own problems happening at that time. Remember, this was, I think, when Emperor Maximilian was, I might have got the timeline wrong, but Emperor Maximilian of
Spain.
Of Mexico. No.
They had an
Yeah.
emperor?
They had just, oh, yeah. They had a Habsburg emperor. He was imposed on the Mexicans by the Austrians. Right? And see, Maximilian, they had their own raging civil war from till 1867. If you go check out Emperor Maximilian
Okay.
of Mexico, it's the second Mexican Empire. The first Mexican Empire was the Spanish Mexican Empire. This was the second independent Mexican Empire. They wanted a Habsburg king. 1867 में उनका civil war खत्म हुआ. Do you know what a devastating civil war it is? He was executed, by the way. Forward-looking man, like he insisted that all the nobles should take a native indigenous woman as wife, which is where the miscegenation of Mexico begins, which is why a lot of white people have Amerindian, well, Aztec, Tarascan, Toltec, whatever, Nahua blood in them. But apparently a good emperor, and opposite him was Benito Juarez. And they failed. And they were recovering from an absolutely devastating civil war of their own. Nasty civil war.
Next question, please. Chaitanya ji again. How do think tankers slash policy experts form their policy decisions? Do they debate and listen to opposite point of views? Why is the West making stupid policy decisions regarding Russian sanctions?
Okay, so this is the problem with policy. It depends on who you listen to. The Americans are so Indians don't do any primary research because they don't invest in themselves. Wherever they go, they just go to events, and that's about it. Ground research non-existent. There's no money for it. The West, the problem is that at least since the last 20 to 25 years, they've become a closed cycle who only listen to themselves. They're not seeking opposing points of view, they're seeking self-validation. So they keep making stupid policy decisions. It's very dogmatic. Like you would see gender ideology. You have liberal ideology in think tank. Okay. But remember, Russia is also making a lot of stupid decisions. Okay. Why aren't you taking out the command nodes? Why are you waiting for weapons to get to the front? Why aren't you bombing them the moment they enter Ukrainian territory from Poland or Romania or wherever? Why has it taken you so long to call up your reserves? How are you losing so many tanks? How is your air force so completely useless? How is your reconnaissance so absolute shit? So everybody has their problems at the moment. There's clearly some very deep-rooted systemic problem across the globe happening with think tankers, no? Myself included.
Maliban again. Was Kaiser Wilhelm overconfident of German Empire's military that he signed treaty with Serbia of defending them in case of a war with the Austro-Hungarian Empire?
Huh? He
Aren't
never
they all
signed
on the
any.
same side?
Austria-Hungary was on Germany was on Austria-Hungary side, boss.
Right, right.
Supporting the Austro-Hungarian Empire going into Serbia. क्या बात कर रहे हो यार?
Yeah, थोड़ा opposite हो गया है वहाँ पर.
हाँ.
Let's move on. Let's move on. Abhishek, will Liz Truss transfer British embassy to Jerusalem, and should India also transfer?
I hope she does. I hope India does. Though I would pity the ambassador if they go to Jerusalem. It's not a very nice city to have your embassy in. The life is much better in Tel Aviv. It's also much more expensive in Tel Aviv, by the way. But our ambassador in Tel Aviv has a very nice house.
Euros wants a question from me. I want to confirm I sent the mail to right email address regarding my startup. Is it si@pgurus.com? Yes, that is correct. Sid Dave wants to know, why did Mongols not conquer Europe? They had conquered Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Hungary, but then stopped at Vienna. Why did they stop their conquest there?
Good question. Mostly internal divisions. They were getting enough loot and plunder every single time. And apparently, the loot and plunder to be had from Europe at that point simply wasn't high enough. So there's a lot of things coming together. The returns to investment not high enough, the distance too great, that the investment itself in going there was too high. So remember, it's not just the troops, what they bring back. It's also, is the cost of the expedition going to be met, and then what is the surplus on top of that? There was a lot of tension at that point. Remember, the Mongol Empire started breaking up within about 15, 20 years of the death of Kublai Khan, of Genghis Khan, sorry. So there was a lot of issues happening back home, lots of bad blood, the splitting up of the Khanates of the Khaganate into five separate constituent, what was it? The Yuan dynasty, the Golden Horde, the Ilkhanate, the Chagatai Khanate, and one more. I forget. But yeah, they split up, and there were massive Mongol civil wars happening as well. So how are they going to proceed? Again, just sheer dumb luck.
Next question, please. David the Goliath wants to know, have Europeans been ruled by non-whites? I can think of Mongols, Persians who ruled over them. Did Arabs, North Africans ever rule over them?
Yes,
Moors,
yes.
right?
Yes, in Spain, Spain, the Emirate of Spain, several emirates of Spain were Berbers and Arabs. Several of the emirates in southern Italy, in Sicily and in Apulia and Campania, were Arabs and Berbers. The Roman Empire itself had Arab emperors. Elgabalus was a Arab emperor. He was ethnically Arab. Okay, you had African emperors. Remember, at that time, North Africa was not uh, Negroid. They were Egypt was Nilo-Hamitic, darker. From Libya onwards, right up to Morocco, they were much fairer Berbers who intermarried very easily with the Greeks. Right. So remember, Carthage is in Tunisia. Uh, Tunisia, yeah, it's in Tunisia. And you had lots of uh, African and ethnically Arab emperors. But just because they're ethnically an African and ethnically Arab does not mean that there was no black person. I think there was one black pope. I think in about 480 there was a black pope. But there was no, well, there was an African pope. They say he was black. We don't really know. But you had ethnically diverse Mediterranean peoples ruling over the Roman Empire. Remember, the Hungarians are Mongols, Magyar. They're Mongols. They were a Mongol tribe. The Magyars were a Mongol tribe. Hungary ruled over a large part of Central Europe for 500 years. The Bulgars are a Mongol tribe. They ruled over large parts for 500 years. The Ottomans were Turks. A large part of the Ottoman Empire was in Europe, right up to, under Suleiman the Magnificent, right up to the gates of Vienna, but included most of Yugoslavia, Croatia, Hungary, Serbia, Romania, everything. They were Turks. So you've had lots of foreign nationalities, Arabs, North Africans, Mongol tribes, Turco-Mongol tribes, basically the same thing, except, when you become Muslim, you turn Turk. Rule over them, yeah.
Next question. James Rocker wants to know, industrialization debate, Sridhar Vembu and AIM. Well, we can try it.
Sure.
I'll try to get that set up. It's a good idea. It's a good idea. Next question, please. Okay, Krishna wants to know, pre-industrial age was a rigid hierarchy based on era. Why was that so?
Because hierarchy is very important when your total production cannot exceed a certain limit. There are set limits on wealth and resource distribution. And so you need to have those hierarchies. Okay. Industrialization leads to new hierarchies where money becomes more important than power. Remember, in an agrarian society, it doesn't matter what you do. Unless you apply modern industrial technology to agriculture, your agricultural production is always going to remain more or less the same. Okay. In that kind of a society where there's no real growth happening, the hierarchy is extremely important in determining who gets what and how much. In an industrial society, and what you value is the power to maintain that hierarchy, which is why the violence is valued the most. In an industrial society, that hierarchy changes. That hierarchy changes because what happens with industrialization? What is industrialization? It's the application of chemical energy to the production process, right? And to agriculture and things like that, which increases everything exponentially. But that leads to also to a hierarchy where money, the capitalist, then assumes the higher rung, greater than physical power. Okay. The other thing that happens is the emancipation of women, because the only difference between a man and a woman is the sheer brute physical strength, which is very important in a pre-chemical energy application to industry in the pre-industrial era. So that is another thing that happens. So you have new hierarchies. The post-industrial, the information age, you break down hierarchies because value is being generated through services and things like that all over the place, ideas and services all over the place. So each one hierarchy serves a certain role.
Shabnam Satpute wants to know why Hindu Mahasabha lose politically but Muslim League was successful in getting seats.
I think I've explained this several times about substance, salience, and Huntington. Go back to previous episodes, please.
Prasanna Srinivasan wants to know what's happening on India-China front. The opposition seems to be busy with their personal issues and the government doesn't care to do a press conference on what's happening.
Yeah, there's disengagement happening, boss. We've confirmed it with satellite imagery. It's fine.
But the new LAC seems to be in what used to be in India's side.
That's not true. That's not true, Shri. It's the new LAC is not really different from the old LAC as far as I can tell. The problem is we don't have imagery from before 2008, so we don't know what they took in 2008. But 2008 to 2013, they've taken a lot. And from 2013, maybe 5 to 10 meters, which you can't really tell. But as far as we can tell, at least since 2013, there has been no change in lines.
Murali Datta Kuchibotla wants to know, is it Chora or Sora? It's Chora. It's Chora is correct. The Ra is correct. Who is the authority on such translations from Indic languages to English with such combinations?
There is no authority. So, in France, they have the Académie Française, which determines all these things. In Indic translation into English, there is none, which is why you have things like chola and chora, which is technically it's chora. Melahai korambu, choran, varai param. So, not valai palam, not kulambu, korambu, melahai korambu, kanni mori, not kanni mozi, right? So it's we don't have a systematized translation, unlike say Vietnamese or Bahasa Indonesia or Turkish, which use the Latin script and they derived their own specific markers to make it to standardize the pronunciation. We've never done that. We're not systematic about anything.
Shadow slowdown. Do you think in future governments will build separate zones for the rich with private army to protect them from the rest of 80% population, similar to a dystopian novel?
Oh, I certainly hope so. Yes, I certainly hope so. It's really quite shocking, you see. I have to live with all kinds of weird people surrounding me. The worst is Bombay. That's the absolute worst. In the same thing, you'll have some multi-karodapati who has raids against him every second day. And in the ground floor, you'll have somebody who will literally have to go sell chana bhatura on the streets to make money. It's really quite shocking. It's yes, I completely detest social mingling. The classes must remain separate. The castes must mingle, but the classes must remain separate. See, the rich are God's shadow on earth. The poor are manifestations of asuras. So that social segregation must be maintained. I certainly hope so. It is not.
He's kidding, of course. He's kidding, of course.
It is not dystopian. It is Vaikunthian.
Tawba, tawba. Next one. Shadow Slowdown again. Shadow Showdown again. Which books do you recommend to understand Greek mythology? What happened to Iliad?
Mythology. No. Iliad is, if you read the Iliad, you're like, isme hai kya? It's got a really weird beginning and a really weird end. If you actually read the Greek tragedies, they don't make sense by themselves. You're actually reading them and going, what the hell is happening out here? It's the English stories based on the Iliad, which are fun to read. So it's that. I would not, and you don't need to understand Greek myths. They're meant to be interpreted in any way you choose to interpret them.
Sandman 1306. Why isn't Lokmanya Tilak popular like Savarkar when, even though he was his mentor? And why didn't the lower caste ever have a violent rebellion against the upper caste in India like the slave rebellions?
So popularity of leaders has to do with how long they survived into independence. If they lived close to independence or past independence, they became popular. If it was before, then they were not. Bikaji Kama, who knows her? Things like that. It's all the people who died within 2 to 3 years of independence or lived after independence who were popular, because otherwise, the name, the mystique, and all of that, it dissipates. Why didn't the lower castes ever have a violent rebellion? Well, because there was social segregation. They lived completely insulated lives from each other. This is number one. The Western explanation is it's because Hinduism teaches you to accept your fate without trying to change it, which is complete nonsense. You know this, and I know this. But it was mostly due to complete segregation of whatever happened. The intermingling was very rare.
Ishan Sharma wants to know, what are your views on Kamala Harris? Can she have a good future post the Biden administration? And strangely, no response from her related to UK violence from her party or the opposition.
Yes, she's a horrible banshee. I she has no future, and she's African. She's not Indian.
Raghuram Chadalavada wants to know, what is the best time to implement UCC? I think there can never be a best time. It should be done now to avoid communal clashes.
I agree. I agree. There is no best time for anything. If you just need to do it, then, dum, 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 dum. Best to do it all at one shot, so that you can deal with all the protests at one shot. Instead of that, what is that line? घुट घुट आहें मरना क्या, जब प्यार किया तो डरना क्या, तो क्यों घुट घुट के मरना है? जब कुछ स्वलो करना है, एक साथ में जहर पी लो. ये लेके फिर हॉस्पिटल जाना, फिर क्योर होके वापस आना, फिर एक और घुट लेके फिर से हॉस्पिटल जाना, नहीं. It should all be done at one shot. I agree with you, Rakram.
Suresh Gupta wants to know, hey Abhijit, why there is a sudden decline in Japan's growth after 1980? Is there any country behind it?
No,
US.
it's not really. It's more to do with decline in growth, not decline in GDP. They've been growing year after year, huh? And that's because first, your economy is huge, so even the growth reflects what growth happens. It reflects as a small percentage. Second is their demographic pyramid. Their demographic pyramid is gone bonkers. They're aging massively as a society, and they also moved very far up the value chain. People don't realize this, but about 40% of Boeing aircraft are made in Japan. Right, so they're no longer competent in things like, you won't have a Sony Walkman, you won't have a mini disc. They don't manufacture phones, but they manufacture fantastic high precision industrial products that are much higher end, that will bring far, far greater returns than consumer electronics.
I think you have to also, can you go back to that question, please? You have to also understand that as soon as Japan started industrializing or making low-cost products for US was on the lookout for the next low-cost destination, and that happened to be South Korea. And then after that, when South Korea started becoming expensive, they moved to Taiwan, and from Taiwan they moved to China. So by 1980, they were well out of Japan. So Japan had already become, fairly expensive to make low-cost products. So they had to move up the food chain, value chain. I think that was not so easy because Japan, by 80s, they were already making fantastic cars. The Honda Accord, when it hit the market in US, was selling at a premium. Did you know that? 1980s.
there's never been a more popular car in America than the Honda Accord.
Yes,
It's
yes.
crazy. The Accord craze was truly crazy. But the thing is, they managed it very successfully. Like today, when you go and talk to the Pentagon, they'll tell you, look, Korea doesn't really have much that we want. Japan has a lot of technology that we want, and we're happy to share technology. So, why does America give so much technology to Japan? It's because they also get a lot of technology back from Japan. Korea will ultimately get there. Taiwan is already at one of those places because they're a huge manufacturer of chips and semiconductors and all of that. Right. The other thing about Japan is they are so hell bent. They're like India, they're a civilizational state. They're hell bent on seeing to it that it will be ethnically Japanese. There will not be immigration. We are not going to keep our demographics up through immigration. They do not want immigration problems. So they're not even replenishing or fixing the demographic problems.
One other thing, little thing, guys. All these countries, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, they have like two or three big hubs where everything happens. The rest of the country is pretty backward, like maybe like India. I mean, you'll have people hanging their clothes in the, on the fields. Houses look very broken down, very, very basic sanitation and so on and so forth. Feels just like an Indian village. I don't know if you've traveled through the hinterlands of Japan or Taiwan or South Korea. I have. Hello?
I have too.
Yeah.
And it's very rural, but remember, all have urban jobs. They all have industrial jobs. Like staying in one of those rural guest houses in Japan is so expensive. It is insane, right? So it looks rural, but it is not rural. In fact, this is the whole reason that Japanese rice is so expensive. You try buying koshikari rice, it's because the value of the Japanese person, and they do not want to get migrants even for that to pick their rice, which is why it's so insanely expensive. Everything Japanese today is they will come up with some marketing gimmick to make you think it's the finest and the best and everything. They have an art where broken ceramics are repaired with gold, and they become several times more expensive than the value of the gold itself and the original value of the thing. Why? Because they've convinced you to believe some metaphysical, philosophical bullshit about how this represents the mystique of life and things like that. So it may look rural, but it is not. It is like when you go to Italy, to rural Italy, it looks rural. It looks like a medieval village. It is not. There's huge production centers nearby where everybody has a job. Remember, industrial countries, only in all the industrial countries except China, only 25% is manufacturing. The rest is services. And it's that service thing. So the impression of it being rural does not mean it is rural.
I'm sorry, I have a disagreement with you. It may be that my information is a little dated. My last foray into rural regions in Japan, Korea, and Taiwan was somewhere in the 1990s, late 1990s, 25 years ago. Maybe it's changed now.
I don't remember going to the villages then. I've been there about 6, 7 years back.
Okay. Suresh Gupta wants to know, hi Abhijit. Oh, that's done. Ishan Sharma wants to know, what are your views on the current day UD Democratic Party as opposed to what it is in the 80s? How to make Hindus aware of voting for conservative parties and not the radical leftist parties?
What is UD Democratic Party?
I think what he's saying is United Democratic Front. No, that is not the thing. Left Democratic Front is the other one.
I don't know.
I don't know. Hey guys, Ishan, you are writing such a long question. Why can't you expand out what you meant by UD? Make your life simple and ours too. Next question, please. Resend it, please. Murali Datta Kuchibotla. Can Buddhism be looked same as Vaishnavism, Shaivism? How did Buddha become a separate god for the world when we include him in Dashavatar?
Look, Hinduism doesn't have any borders. No, anything can be a Hindu.
Right.
Be an atheist and
Open
be
source.
an agnostic. Yeah, it's open source. So, see, this is like comparing, Apple, where everything is patented, with Android, where everything is becoming patented, to what is that open source? Linux, no? Linux, where
Yeah.
everything is open. Yeah. And surprise, surprise, Apple started off as a Linux platform, didn't it?
Unix platform. Yeah.
Yeah,
Unix. Yeah.
Unix. Yeah.
Even
So,
now, the Apple operating system is Unix. They just put
Unix.
a new face on it. That's all.
So that's the basic thing out there. So you can look at anything you want as a Hindu school of thought. And Buddha, remember in the beginning, Buddha never claimed he was a god. The Chinese word for him is Sakyamuni. He's the epitome to be emulated. He's not a god in several schools. He was never represented before Buddha was never meant to be represented as an anthropomorphic figure. You look at all early Buddhist imagery, he's represented as a lotus or an elephant, and that's it. It used to be like Islam, no physical representation allowed. And we included him. I don't know who included him in Dashavatara, but because I tell you, in the southern Dashavatara, he is not included.
It is
Okay.
Balarama. It's
Yeah,
Balarama in the Savatara and
exactly.
South.
No, not even Balarama.
Yes, it is
Balarama,
Balarama.
no, it is not.
You
It
tell me
is
what you think it is.
Matsya, Kurma,
Kurma, mhm,
Varaha,
Varaha, right?
uh, uh,
Vamana,
Vamana, uh,
Narasimha,
Narasimha,
Pu-
Rohini.
no. It is what is the thing? Parashurama,
No, Rohini, Parashurama, Rama,
Krishna.
Krishna, and then Kalki. Rohini is the one included. I'm going to show you this piece of ivory that I have, which I'm inheriting from my mother, apparently, if she decides to give it to me. Wait, let me show you this. It's a very old piece.
What does Rohini do?
She's the one who kills, no, with this thing. She dances and she kills that Asura by placing her hand over the head.
Basmasur.
Basmasura, va? 1 second. Let me check. What is this thing? Let me see where the photo is. 1 second. Okay. Can you see this?
Right.
One of them there is holding their hand to their head. Can you see on this side?
Yeah.
Side extreme, this person is holding their hand to their head. That is Rohini.
No, not Rohini. Mohini Avtara.
Rohini.
Yeah.
But that is the avatar.
I don't know, yaar. I have not seen this. This is the first time I'm seeing it.
No, but this is always
Balarama
been.
is the one.
Balarama is
Sometimes
incorrect. No,
Balarama
Balarama
is
was never an
replaced by
incarnation.
Buddha.
No, Balarama was never an incarnation of Vishnu. This is the
Let's
same.
see. Let's see who wins. Let's go for a fight.
Balarama was never an incarnation of Vishnu. Just like Buddha was never an incarnation of Vishnu. We do not accept Buddha as an incarnation of Vishnu.
Okay, let's go to the next question. We will take it up with more data.
But in the South, we have never accepted him.
Let's go to the next one, please. Sid Dave wants to know, is Rig Veda a local text specific to Punjab? I read Guru Granth Sahib and it seems like a pan-Indian text. It's ironic that Sikhism text is pan-Indian, whereas Rig Veda is a local Punjabi text.
Well, it's a Punjabo Sindhi text because it spans the whole of Punjab and Sindh, the whole of the Indus plains, so to say. And Sikhism, yes, because remember who were Sikhs? They were Hindus who came from everywhere. Some of them were from Odisha, some of them were from Maharashtra. Maharashtra pata nahi, but Odisha se kafi sare the. I think one of the sacred places is there in Odisha. And this is it is very much Rig Veda is very much a Punjabo Sindhi text.
All right, guys. There's a hot debate going on whether it is Mohini or Balarama. At this point of time,
It
I'm
is not
leading
Balarama.
comfortably.
I refuse to accept Balarama. If this program accepts it is Balarama, I will not come back on this program. इधर मेरा ही चलेगा, जो मैं बोलता हूँ वही वेद वाक्य है, ये मोहिनी ही है, कोई बलरामा नहीं है इसमें, कोई बुद्धा नहीं है इसमें, एंड ऑफ स्टोरी। अपने घर
Next
में जो
question,
करना
please.
करो। ये आस्क अभिजीत एपिसोड, कोई भी एपिसोड में Balarama is not an incarnation, full stop.
Abhijit is having a meltdown moment, guys. थोड़ा पानी पी लो, ठंड हो जाओ. Shantanu Raghav wants to know.
This is the thing about Vaishnavism. Vaishnavites are monotheistically and they're very intolerant. So I've turned Vaishnavite when I discuss Vishnu.
Shantanu Raghav wants to know India specific econ podcasts. Which ones would you recommend? India specific economic podcasts.
I don't recommend. Because
How about Sanjeev Sanyal? He seems to have a good stuff.
But he doesn't have a podcast. Where does he have a podcast?
So he just does some videos here and there, interviews or things like that.
Yeah. So there is no economic podcast that I like because they're mostly overwhelmingly they're too guarded or peddling an agenda or some shit like that. I have not come across a single economic podcast YouTube, what I classify them all as podcasts, as telling you much about the Indian economy.
You know, if I look at what Modi is doing, right, and don't stop me until I finish, then you can interrupt. He realizes that there isn't really any growth because of what's happening in the stock market or in all these FDI investments, because not real value is coming. What he's doing is the next best thing. Put the roads, create the infrastructure, and then he's hoping that India can take at least a sizable percentage of business away from China and be the world's manufacturing center. I think that's what he's hoping for. Because there is nothing else that makes sense to me. I travel from Coimbatore to Madurai, fantastic roads, except when they are still in construction. But I can imagine in a year's time, it'll be 4-lane highway between Coimbatore and Madurai. And this is not even a main artery, right? Beautifully done, beautifully done. And those kind of things will help.
And look, Lata Vaslani got it. Thank you, Lata. Balarama is the incarnation of 𝙒𝙧𝙤𝙪𝙥𝙥. Correct.
Okay. All right. Let's. You're just taking a look at one. There are other people who said that the expert has spoken and it is Balarama. Anyway, that's okay.
Oh, no. You will immediately deny this. Otherwise, I will leave this podcast right now. Repeat after me. Mohini, not Balarama, not Buddha. Say it. Otherwise, I'm going to disconnect right now.
So look, all I'm saying is
No.
Okay?
First, you have to say it is only Mohini, not Balarama, and not Buddha.
You know, your rabbit seems to have 3 legs.
No. You have to say this. Otherwise, I will not continue.
All right. Let's continue this debate.
No. First, you have to say it is Mohini. Say it is Mohini.
You're sounding like some of those Arab, Cheftians in Lawrence of Arabia.
I am Iyengar today. Say it is Mohini. You have to say it is Mohini, otherwise I will not let you
Listen, guy. I don't take any sides on what is.
No. This is not side. This is doctrine. It is written. It is immutable. It is the word of God. How can you dispute the word of God?
All right. Ishan wants to know. Here. There you go. Matsya Kurma.
ये साला representation है, ये foreign propaganda है, ये Iyer conspiracy है, अयंगारों के
खिलाफ. China से आया है, right?
China में बनाया गया है. It is an attempt to disrupt. निकालो इसको, इसका इतना अश्लील है, निकालो इधर से. It is Mohini only.
This is even worse. There is no Krishna in this one, so that's even wrong. So, all right. Ishan Sharma, look, this is what happens when you outsource manufacturing to China. They'll take Avalokiteshvara and then put that also as a reincarnation. Ishan Sharma wants to know, what are your views on the current day USA Democratic Party as compared to it in the 60s to 80s? How to make Hindus aware of voting for the conservative parties and not the radical leftist parties?
You know, the Democrats, as they were called, the Dixiecrats, south of the Dixie Basin line, were the
Yes,
worst racists. They were the party of segregation.
yes.
So it is not surprising that they've gone back to their segregationist roots. Remember, what they're looking at today is a different perspective of different but equal, segregated but similar. It was a racist party before the 60s. It has come full circle and become a racist party in the 2010s.
Okay, let's take this debate forward. Mohini, tell me the story of Mohini according to you.
So this Asura went to Shiva. He did lots of yagya and this and that. So he didn't go to Shiva. Shiva appeared in front of him. And he said, Mang, tere ko kya chahiye? So he said that whenever whoever I put my hand on their head, they should die. So he said, okay, take it.
Turn into dust. Yeah.
And turn to die, basically. So then what happened was, he threatened all the devas and then he came after Shiva himself. So Shiva went running to Vishnu. And Vishnu said, theek hai, ruk jao. Then he incarnated as Mohini. Okay. And Mohini, this Asura was completely enchanted by Mohini. He's like, kitni sundar hai. Like they say in Tamil, no, Jollupandi. Like Jollupandi he became.
Drool,
And
drool.
so Jollupandasura then went, he was like, oh, show me. So she's like, yeah, I can choose you, but only if you dance like I dance. I will only choose a man who can dance the way I dance. He's like, okay, tika. And he was remember, Asuras were highly educated, very scholarly people. This guy was a huge Shiva Bhakta. That is why he got the boon from Shiva. No? So just like Ravana was a great scholar. Ravana was probably better educated than Rama. He was a huge scholar. He was a great Veena exponent and everything. So this Asura was also like that. She was a great connoisseur of the art. So Mohini started dancing, and somewhere in the mudra she did this, which he copied and did this, and then he killed himself.
Fairly accurate. So that's a good one.
Very accurate. It is the only way. The Iyengar way is the only way.
Okay, the only thing you left out, I think, is that he also thought he was a very good dancer. That is why she started dancing. See, you need to lay the bait in something where the person feels is very, very strong.
No. See, milke bolo ek zaban. Vishnu Iyengaristan. The
All right,
Iyengar
next
way,
question, please.
Iyengar way or the highway?
Okay, so we have crossed 1 hour, and viewers, we are sorry. We need to let Abhijit go, and let's meet again during the week. Sometime Abhijit will record the unanswered questions. If there are some for me, I'll also do it.
Answer. Somebody asked me, Vadagalaya, Tengalaya, Vadagalaya.
Shiva. Okay then. Thank you so much, Abhijit. And we'll be back again next week. That's the regular questions and answers. And unanswered will be given on channel 2. Please also subscribe to channel 2. We never know when we are going to get banned on this one again. So let's be ready for that day and be able to have you in the second channel so that you guys don't lose any of the content that we are going to put there. Thank you very much, Abhijit. And as always, Veil.
Vetrivel.
Vetrivel.
Veeravel.
Yes. Namaskar.